We are live. Looking for handouts. How are we? How are we doing this fine day? We are going to be talking about, are we live? Yes. Okay. We are going to be talking about, I say we're live. Sometimes it's not live. You might be watching a replay, even if I say we're live at the beginning, because I am live right now. But when you watch it later, I'll still be live. Let's not even go there. Okay. Hi, Caroline. How are you? Nice name. Today we're going to talk about rewriting your screenplay. So that's all part of writing, finishing. So this whole thing is about finishing a screenplay, right? And we're seeing a lot of comments about what to do after you finish your screenplay, which we're going to talk a bit about tomorrow. We have our good evening. I know I've asked you this already, and then I squirrel off and don't hear the response or see the response. Is it share? Spell it phonetically for me. Yay for Mushi! Woohoo! You finished your second trip 5 a.m. this morning. Right on. We're right there with you. I got to post that one. That's a great comment there. So if you would like, us to be able to see and me be able to post your name and whatnot, you need to click on the StreamYard.com to post your name. Take 3. This is like take 7. So we have other trainings. We've been trying to put them into the units. Been a little bit haphazard with that, but I'll try to do that tonight if I can, and put them over so you can all have one place. But if you just scroll in the Facebook group, you can see all the trainings that we've done, including this one later. So, and then we have one at noon on Friday, the 6th. So there you have it. That's what's going on here. And tomorrow we're going to be talking about productivity. Wah, wah, wah. So today, yesterday or Wednesday, we asked for, hey, Doug, we asked for suggestions about what we might do today. And we decided on rewriting because someone asked for that. We really do listen. We do. It has been a busy, busy week, right? It's very exciting. Lots going on. So today, let's dive on in and talk about the 12 R's. We're so clever of rewriting. And rewriting is not one of them. That's the 13th. So number 1, can you see the handout? I don't know. Here, I'm going to post it here. So for all of you people that are in the group, oops. So if you're watching this, I just posted that in the wrong spot. I'm still figuring this whole thing out. All of these links and whatnot. We have a lot of handouts that we're giving out. So if you are seeing this, we are broadcasting this also to our YouTube channel and also to our Facebook page. We're everywhere. And we have a podcast. So definitely check and subscribe, and we need some reviews. So write us some reviews and we'll do a shout out for you. Yay for Brett. So it's share. Good. Now I know. Thank you. So if you're watching this somewhere else, come on into the finished Facebook group, and there's a lot more trainings and a lot more handouts and things that you can do in there. So we do special things for the people in our special finished group. Yes, we do. So there you have it. So download that handout and let's dive in. Let's talk about it. Let's do it. And you can actually, I would recommend that you use these handouts and decide for yourself what what your step will be, because we're just prompting you. So for example, rejoice is number 1. Rejoice, you are done. So many times we just start working again. We don't rejoice. And Doug and I are really trying to get a culture of that in our business, with gatekeepers too. Every time we bring in new students, we try to have okay, that was good. We got new students in, or we open this pop-up group. And once this is, closes down, all right, high five, let's celebrate the things that we did. Then you go back and you look and see, just like we do in our business, what are the things that need work? But hey, Carrie, nice to see you. But yeah, celebrate, man. Do something, whatever that is for you. Go out for a party, go out for a movie, because we can't get enough of movies, right? So celebrate. Make sure that you celebrate the fact that you finished your screenplay. It's a big deal. There's so many people, thousands and thousands of people that say they're going to write a screenplay. They don't actually do it. Once you get that first draft done, boom, some celebration is due. Dance party. I don't feel like I'm alone. Dancing. Family's used to it. They're just like, oh, there she goes again. She's talking to herself in there with the light on. And then you want to rejuvenate, right? Take some time, take a nap, take a walk, take a vacation, take a shower, go to the spa, play some games, whatever it might be for yourself, rejuvenate. That's number 2. The second R is rejuvenate. Take some time, walk away from it, let it go. Hey, Mariana, let it go, walk away, turn off your emails. Got it. Walk away, really celebrate and take some time and relax. If you dive right in, you're too close to it. You need to walk away from it before you come back for a rewrite. So walk away. And then number 3 is returned. And you'll return more refreshed. You'll be ready to kind of take a look at it again. And when you are out there rejuvenating and celebrating and all of that, don't try not to think about it, really. Let it go. Really try to let it go and think about, something else. What might your next step be? Or nothing to do with writing for a little while. Really take a break. You've earned it. And then come back to it. And then when you return, you can return more refreshed, right? You'll be more ready. Oh, I didn't even put ready. How many R words can we come up with? So return to it. You'll be more ready. You'll be more willing to look at it. It'll be a much better experience than if you just go fade to black, fade in. What do I need to fix? You need to take some time. Definitely finish the restructure and rewrite of your memoir. Love it. Love it. Boom. Memoirs are good. And then once you return, read it out loud. You, yourself, it's your time. Shine your acting skills, whether you're not an actor or not, but really read it out loud. You'll be amazed. There's sometimes we create sentences that then when we say them out loud, it's like, oh, yeah, that's not going to work. It's like just a sentence that doesn't come out right. It comes that you can't get it out easily. And so you'll start to see those kinds of things, all the typos, grammar issues. You'll start to see more of that if you read it out loud just by yourself first. Definitely do that before you have someone else read it, because that's just a straight ahead proofread. When you read out loud, record yourself if you're really feeling brave. When you read out loud, things pop out that you never would have thought. I know, Gary's awesome, right? It is so good for Gary and all of us, because someday we're going to read it, right? So read out loud, and then it's reader time. Once you've read it out loud, then it's time to give to someone. Give it to someone you would trust, ideally more than one person. We have a few readers in here, so you can get it. Go for it. It kind of depends on how you're feeling about it. We automatically, we get professional coverage because we've written so many screenplays. We want professional coverage right away. But if you don't feel quite up for that, you can give it to people you trust, family, friends. Some people always stick with that. I like the stranger approach. I think because I'm a reader, the friends and family thing, they all know I'm readers. So it's a little bit weird. So getting a reader, and even hiring a reader that I don't know, because I also know a lot of readers. And we do have one person who's a friend and a professional reader, and we often run stuff by her first. But we always get someone that we don't know and pay them to do professional coverage. So having someone read it, whether it's a friend, whether it's professional, whether it's whatever, you're in a writer's group, whatever it might be, definitely it's reader time. And we are, our main thing is Hollywood Gatekeepers, which is training readers. That's our main signature course and thing that we do is training readers. You couldn't see me before? I can never see you. Give it to your mom. Or you can give it to a sibling, because siblings are notoriously ruthless. But, you can give it to whomever you feel. Paul Haggis talked about how he still gives it to his ex-wife. They're friends, and she's still someone who reads. And now his daughter, I think, is helping him. But, everybody's a little bit different. So we're always going to come back to knowing yourself, know thyself. Responsibility of how comes back on you, not on anybody else. So you decide how you want to get it done. You decide the how this is all going to take place. So get some feedback though, and ideally from more than one person, so that you can see if it's an outlier opinion that something doesn't work, or if it's more than one person that is getting this. So definitely it's good to get more than one opinion, because what is the feedback? Because the next thing is it a rewrite or is it a polish? Those are two different types of rewrites. So a rewrite means oh, they didn't get that this person's the villain, some major thing in your plot. Oh, they thought they were brother and sister, not husband and wife. That, things like that. Sometimes something that you did not intend whatsoever. Someone reads it and goes, oh, it's cool how blah, blah, blah. And you're like, what? That's not right. So that's why it's good to get more than one person, because sometimes it's just the person reading it. And sometimes it's, something that's in the script that's missing or not clear or whatever. And if that's the case, it's a rewrite. There's a major problem that you need to rewrite. Or it might be a polish if people are like, oh my gosh, it's so great. I didn't quite get this. Or, oh my gosh, this character is so funny and blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, oh yeah, it was great. Like people kind of come back with sort of general, really tiny things. Then that's a polish. It's a much different thing. So we're glad to have you here, Brack. So there you go. So if you get things that are back and they're conflicting, then keep having people read it till you start to get a more general sense. If it's conflicting, whereas, and I absolutely love it when this happens, this means you're onto something. If you get people that hate it and people that love it, that's the best, because then you're like creating a reaction, right? So we actually did a play once, and they went with that, and they did the ads. They're like, critics love it and critics hate it. It worked. Totally sold it out because everyone wants to see for themselves, right? People want to form their own opinion. So if people come back, really conflicted like that, that's good. But if they come back and they're just, they don't agree on things, or you're not getting a general sense, then you know that there's some issues, and that's a rewrite. Then you're going to have to dive in. But if, then if they're just saying, oh yeah, it was really fun, then you want to see, are they identifying with the characters? Are the characters moving them? Are the characters coming across in the way you intended? Kind of more things like that. Yeah, that can happens all the time, Gary, that 3 different people gave 3 different feedback. Yeah, if you're getting a visceral reaction, you're doing something right. Love that. So then, you dive a little deeper. If you're getting 3, you will get different reactions because it's so subjective. We've done this exercise a couple times this week of like, what's a movie that you love, 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 and everybody hates, or vice versa. What's a movie that you like, or like, what? Someone liked that movie? It's very subjective. So keep going. Sometimes too, you'll get 3 different reactions, but they're not really all that different. So I also take a step back, read the reactions in a few different ways, because sometimes they mean the same things, they just are saying them in different ways. So I just really, pull that apart. And then this is a really cool exercise. And I've always done this with my screenplays, I think because I'm an actor too, but really reread your screenplay out loud again, but play each character. Just go through each character and take out a notepad or on your computer, whatever, and follow through one character. Follow them through, because sometimes the character's tripping along and all of a sudden it's like there's a big scene and they don't say a single word. And as a writer, sometimes you don't hear that one character is not really like, present, because all the characters are present in your head. So you might not notice that someone's not saying something until you read through the screenplay from that character's perspective. And then also you'll see holes. Holes will pop out at you like, oh, I never revealed that, that they're brother and sister. Oh, shoot, I never revealed that this thing is supposed to, the story. But by reading it one character at a time and taking notes as that character, then you'll be like, oh yeah, I need to fix this or that. Holes will pop out a little bit easier, a little bit easy. So that's reveal the arc of each character. You definitely need to do that. And then you want to research the deets. We're so hip around here. So does everything ring true about the actions? Is the screenplay free from typos? There's that. So details in terms of details in the story. Do things ring true? Did they wear sneakers in the 1700s? Silly example, but you know what I mean? Like really understand. And Doug and I, this is kind of one of our pet peeves that we joke about, is like, we saw a movie that was set in like the 70s and one of the characters went like this. I'm like, no. That's a thing that started with Meet the Fockers. It's like, that wasn't a thing back then, but the actor they were really young, and I don't think they really understood time periods. And so they weren't, to them, it was like a 10-year-old. So she didn't get it. So it's like, go through and make sure that your details make sense in the time period and make sense for where they're living. And do people that speak in that region say those things and that kind of stuff. And also go through your own script for research to make sure that, everything's copacetic in terms of like grammar. Someone mentioned, and we didn't put this in our rules, about fade in and fade out. That, it's interesting. It used to be a really big deal. It's fun to write. So it is good to put fade in at the top and then fade to black at the end. And then you don't need to put cut twos between. As a matter of fact, I recommend you don't put cut twos unless there's something that's really like, we want to know that we're here and then we're here, like something really like we're over, if we're tripping on, you definitely don't put it if you're in the same house, moving scene to scene. You can put continuous and that kind of thing in the slug line, but fade in, fade out, you can leave on each, and I'll make a comment for that person too. But definitely research. One of the questions you've seen after read is, which character would you like to sit down and have a drink with? I love that. Reese. And if it isn't your protagonist, you may have a problem. Unless it's an anti-hero. And then it's like, sometimes protagonists are the people that you might not want to have a drink with them, but you're kind of fascinated by watching them, kind of Breaking Bad. Like, I wouldn't want to hang out with him, but he's super cool to follow. So yeah, that's a really good one. But it's also in a, if there is any kind of chemistry that you're trying to get across, absolutely, would you date this person or whatever? Like, we need to make sure that they are getting across whatever it is that they're supposed to be getting across in the screenplay. And then when you get through all of that, and not until you get through all of that, do you do a live read with actors. And we stress this a lot. We're going to do it in here next week so that you can see what it's like. It's so, so, so important. Had to cut all of our Butch Cassidy, so I started over as well. Yep, better tone that down. Yep, super cool. I think Victorian British swear, I think the F word was around back then, actually. Because I remember when they first started bringing the F word kind of into period pieces. I believe that comes from, I want to say it's an Irish word. Anybody know the origins of it? From, I used to know this. It had something to do with a word being mispronounced that had to do with like breaking away from the king. So it would have been like in the 1500s, somewhere in there. So I was just thinking about this the other day. So, when you're doing a period piece, and I hate to break it to you, but, now movies set in the 2000s can be period pieces. Definitely the 90s are period pieces now, right? So, and it's so funny because now as we move into the next century, it's like, we can go, the 60s were this and the 40s were this. And, we can identify our last century by decades pretty easily. But to me, 1810 and 1870, it's the 1800s. Until you get into like the 1890s, and then I know we're getting into the industrial age, it's like, and maybe because I have grandparents that talked about that time period, it's like, but it's kind of weird, right? We're so temporary. It's like pretty soon this will all be a wash. Like nobody will know the difference between the 20s and the 80s. Doesn't that seem weird? Like, anyway, so it's interesting, but it is something to really think about when you are writing certain time periods, for sure. From Louisiana, right on, and Tulsa, Oklahoma is in the house. Love it. Love it. So once you kind of do those things first, read through it yourself, when you do a live read with actors, you want it to be pretty far along. Like you feel like it's pretty cohesive. But what will be interesting is sometimes you'll do a live read, and this has happened with us, hence the cycle. Like Doug and I had a screenplay that we wrote, and we did a live read, and it was just so one of those moments. The actors did a great job, but after it was like, dang, there are so many problems with the screenplay. And you could feel the audience like, ugh, it was so heavy. And it was a horror film that I know this will be a shock to some of you who've worked with us. We were overthinking it. So it was a huge lesson. And so we kind of moved on to the next thing, that's what we'll talk about tomorrow, is when do you know, when is rewriting done? And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. But it's like with that particular project, we decided to kind of move on and then come back to it later. There's some scenes from that script, though, that are some of the best that we've ever written, I think. So it's interesting. It's never bad. It's only good to write a screenplay, for sure. For sure. So then once you read with the actors, do a Q&A afterwards. If you can read with actors and have people there, even better, because then the people will say, and also having people there, you can watch their reactions. There's nothing like sitting in an audience of people that are watching something that you wrote. It's even better when they don't know you're the writer. I absolutely love that. I love that because I write a lot of theater. So I love going to the theater and sitting in the back and watching the reaction to people watching my plays. It's really interesting. And I have one in particular that the first time that they watched it, it's a dark, very dark comedy, but there were things that I intended to be funny and they would just be kind of a little shocked. And then there were things that there are two lines in particular that I thought were heart-wrenching, that everyone laughed every time. And now I know it's a laugh line. I never in a million years would have thought that it was a laugh line, but now I'm like, okay, I can kind of see it if you, because it's true story from my life. So for me, it was one of those moments. But for people, it's people, and then I know in that moment, because they're laughing, that they are identifying with the character. If they're laughing, that means that they're with you. If they're having any reaction at all, they're with you. So when you do a live read, having an audience there, and you can feel when they're not, boy, it gets very squeaky. The room gets very full of sneezes and coughs and squeaks, because they're just not engaged anymore, and it can get heavier and heavier and heavier. So we've been through both of like, wow, uproarious laughter and people clapping and like, this is the coolest thing ever, to people just like quietly hunched over, trying to get what you're trying to get across. Really interesting. So now here's just rewriting rituals. So we went through and we did just kind of bullet questions about what to ask about the story, nuts and bolts, and then what to ask, what we kind of define. We do this in the reader program too, where we define things in two different ways, which are things that are tactical and nuts and bolts, and things that are kind of the more creative character dialogue, that kind of thing. We kind of separate it out because they're two different areas. And I don't know, it just seems to work for us because we are writing partners, so we separate it out that way. So here's the questions to go down and tick these off. Download this handout and ask yourself these questions about your screenplay. Are the scenes repetitive? Are they? Like, really, let's be honest. Are they repetitive? Does every single scene move the story forward? Now, it doesn't mean that there needs to be an action. It can be something that happens, a shift in the character, but something, I beg of you, needs to happen. If something doesn't happen in the scene, unless that's the point, but even in Groundhog Day is such a good example. Again, people always go, what about Groundhog Day? It's the same scene over and over. But he's shifting massively in every scene. His journey shifts. That's what makes that movie so spectacular, is that everything's staying the same except for him. And then he's manipulating it. So good. Such a good movie. So is everything necessary to tell the story? Sometimes you can be redundant and the scene moves the story forward, but then the next scene moves the story forward again, the same thing. It's like, and you see this all the time, where a scene happens and let's say, there's a fire and everybody's running around, there's all this action. And then the next scene is someone who was at the first scene going, oh, there was a fire. And then they tell you everything that we just saw. Or sometimes, and this could be a budget thing sometimes, is that they have to tell it because we can't see it. But that's a very common thing in screenplays, where we see it and then hear it, or hear it and then see it. It's like, pick one. It's not moving. You think it's moving the story forward because it's getting the information about what happened to new people, but we already know that, and we can cut them telling and just cut to the reaction of the people hearing it for the first time. You can see that the person's covered in soot and they just came from the scene, and you can see the people's reaction, like, oh my gosh, are you okay? We don't need to see the person tell them, oh, I just came from a fire, right? It's like, look for those in your screenplay. You might find some, because it's a really, really, really common thing. There's no late here. We don't have late. You're doing this, to make your screenplay happen. It's the life of a writer. You got to make it work when you can make it work. Are the scenes in the correct order? And that's another thing. Like, sometimes, if you go through one, and when you do the character thing that we talked about, following each character, you'll see like, oh, wait a minute, this character is finding about this thing that hasn't happened yet. Like, they're talking about something that hasn't even happened yet. Sometimes that kind of, because since you know your story, and sometimes you can jump around a little bit, sometimes, you need to make sure that the scenes are in the right order. That's where 3x5 cards come in handy. If you do that kind of writing where you have every scene on a 3x5 card, then you can kind of move them around, decide what order they should go in. And that's a great tool if you kind of know the scenes that you want, but you're not exactly sure of the whole story. It's a great tool where you can move stuff around, and then you can change things. And it's really an interesting exercise to do it, even if you think you do know how it's going to go. By moving things around, suddenly you can be like, oh, wait, editors do it all the time. Like, it happens even after movies are done. They go, well, you know what, maybe we should have them discover this, and you can actually retell the story. Editors are so important for that, for many reasons, but that's one of them. So ask yourself, if you cut the first 5 pages off of the front of this screenplay, would it make a difference? Because sometimes that first 5 pages is just kind of like, okay. Oh, did you hear that crack? Oh, another crack. I did yoga today. I did yoga for writers. Did you see that? It's very sweet. She's so sweet. So this is like, I'm still doing the first 5 pages, by the way. And then we're going to stretch and we're going to kind of get our muscles going and get warmed up. Okay, are we warmed up? Okay, let's start the story. Just try it. Chop off the first 5. See what happens. Sometimes you can start a little bit later. Same is true in every scene. Chop off the first page of your scene. Enter later, exit sooner. Faster, funnier, faster, funnier. That's what it feels like when you write a comedy and you're watching actors do it. Come on, faster. I don't know what that is. It's funnier, but I hear it every writer that I know that writes comedy feels that way. I don't know what that is. So if you cut off that first 5 pages, would the story suffer? And be honest. Is there a build? There needs to be a build. If there's not a build, you're either missing scenes. If the build happens too quickly, you might need a few more scenes. If there's no build, then the thing that we're talking about, then scenes are being repetitive. If it's not building, that's a general thing from many scenes going the same thing, same thing, same thing, same thing, same thing. So by cutting off the beginning and end of each scene, you're going to start shaping this thing. It's going to start building a little better, because if you're repeating yourself, the only medium where you can repeat yourself and it works is melodrama. And that's what soap operas are. That's what a lot of series television, even Game of Thrones, is soap opera. Really, that's the genre. And absolutely, soap operas, daytime soaps, are melodrama. And melodrama relies heavily on exposition. And so that's why it moves so slowly. We talk about this in the screen reader courses, that, we had relatives in North Dakota that we would see like twice a year, and they were big fans of Days of Our Lives. And so 6 months had gone by and it'd been like 2 days on the show. And I'd be like, I can keep up with the story by watching it like every 6 months, because that's why they have this exposition. And that's the only place this kind of exposition really works is, well, did you know that, Sally's sister had another baby by Joey's brother, and then that's my son? They have so much to explain. People don't talk like that in real life, but there's so much happening and so many subplots and melodrama that we allow it. And so that's why that, yay, I'm glad that's working for you, Angelina. We're super happy. So definitely you want to make that conflict believable. And this is sometimes can be a hard thing to do. And sometimes this is what trips a screenplay up, is that we just don't buy it. And the audience is so willing. They paid money to suspend their disbelief. They put money on the table. They bought a subscription to Netflix, whatever it might be, because they want desperately to suspend into your story. They're there. They're with you. Take them, make it believable. And they'll even go really far down a path. They'll go a long way with you. They really want to be on this journey with you. So if you take them down a path and then you do something that's not believable, they'll be so disappointed, because they're investing their time and their money. But their time is super valuable too. So it's like, make sure that it's believable. Is the conflict believable? It's very important. And sometimes arguments, especially, look at a screenplay and say, have you ever said something like this? And would you ever say something like this? Or do you know someone, if you're not the type to say these things? Part of that is sometimes people have a hard time writing a world that's not theirs. And even if you're writing a space thing, or you're writing some, period piece, it's still people. It's still human. Even if they're not, it's still humanity. Even if they're aliens or not people, even if they're animated bicycles, they're still going to be getting across the voice of humanity. So would you talk like that? Do you know someone who talks like that? Would this conflict be believable? Would a father, you see this in family stuff sometimes. And actually I have a screenplay that's based on a true story, and then there's parts of it that aren't true. And I couldn't get it off the ground because nobody would believe the parts that are true. They only believe the violent things that didn't happen, which is really interesting, right? Might be better now. This was a while ago. So what is the point of no return? So we talked about structure on Wednesday, and we talked about the 3-act structure and how things need to build. And so a character takes an arc where, they don't know that they are not who they want to be when the film starts. They're tripping through life. Sometimes they know. Sometimes it opens and they're shopping for alcohol, like in Leaving Las Vegas. Sometimes they know that the life that they have right now is not the life they want when the film starts. Sometimes they're not even aware of it until the inciting incident. Consequence happens, something takes place, and it shoots them into Act 2, and they have this dilemma that they're dealing with. And then that goes on, and then they get to a point where there's no return, where they have to make a choice. They either need to fight the battle, Braveheart says the big story, whatever it might be, something happens where they're like, okay, Dorothy goes for the broom, right? She's going to get the broom. She brings it back to the Wizard of Oz. Point of no return. I'm making this happen. That's when they make the choice to do the thing that they've been struggling against or whatever. You need to make sure that there is a moment like that. Otherwise, you lose people and you lose the build. And then that leads into Act 3, which is the resolution. But that point of no return usually happens page 80 to 100, somewhere in there. Can vary, but it's super important. Is there a satisfying resolution? So many people, partly I think because they don't know where they're headed with their screenplay. And so there's a resolution that's like, what? Huh? Oh. Again, people are investing. They want a resolution they can sink their teeth into. Absolutely. So make sure that it's satisfying. And people will tell you, if that's why when a live read, it's like, you'll watch because people just sink into their chair, check their phone. If it's not satisfying, as opposed to going to the premiere of Whiplash where people leapt to their feet, like that's an extreme example on the other side. You want at least, that's what you really want, people to leap to their feet, right? That's what we're all going for. But at least to have them be like, something at the end. And then, has the story been told before? It's fine if it has. If the story's been told before, that's okay, but what's your new take on it? What's your new twist on it? Most stories have been told before. There's a whole thing about how all stories are the Wizard of Oz, and Google that. It's really funny. And it's like, oh, what story is the Wizard of Oz? And so, or if you do the log line of the Wizard of Oz, like a bunch of people put a bunch of different stories. It's really good. And then, why this story and why now? Why do you feel the need to tell this story, and why are you telling it now? What's going on? You need a why. You need a why as a writer so that you can, forge ahead. And we need a why as your audience for us to invest in you. So those are the first things. That's just the nuts and bolts. You asked. You asked. The only thing that gets me out of sci-fi movies is naked aliens. So you conquered the banner of the speed of light, the barrier of the speed of light, sorry. Build an impressive spaceships and couldn't put on pants before you left your planet. You should. Never mind. It's a long story. We posted a really great post about that. It is funny because I'm drive my family nuts, and I'll be like, "Wow, look, the women are naked here too. What a shocker!" This guy do that all the time. Oh my god! And one of my favorite things is now. Don't get me started on this topic. Now they have more. This is awesome. They have more cop shows, right, with female cops being tough, but every poster is the woman with her back to the camera looking over her shoulder. Really? Why do we need that view? Does that make her a better cop? It's like, do you see that on Law and Order? Can you imagine all the men? Right? What the heck? There are no underwear in space. Didn't you know that? Anyway, so true. The comments froze up. No wonder it seems, they seem to be working for me. Okay, wait, I can't get my mouse back. I see him. Here, I'm going to do that. Where's that? There's no underwear in space. Now you can see that one. So now, relationships. Let's talk about relationships, shall we? Ask the following of your characters. Do they relate to one another? Do they really? Do they make sense with each other? Is there chemistry there? Can you picture it? Are they relating? Are they believable? Again, goes back to, would you say that? Have you heard people say these things? Watch yourself. Have you completed a character analysis on each one? We talked about this with subtext, and this is the real work, is really diving in off the page, doing character analysis, reading these things out loud, trying different things. It's really hot in here. Trying different things like, have you tried all of this stuff? This is the stuff that you do behind the scenes that isn't necessarily on the page, right? But then it will go back and influence how you write these characters. Do you know their subtext? You should know what they're thinking, and it should come across. We used the lip quiver example the other day, so definitely check that out. What happens the day before your story begins and the day after your story ends? What happens with all these people? That's an actor tool too. When you're an actor and you're coming into a scene, even if it's not in the script, what happened right before that scene? It makes the scene much different if you're coming off of a hard day or a good day. What happened? And so a lot of the times that is not given. You're not given that. You have to create that. And so as a writer, if you know what happened, and you can do it with each scene too, what happened right before this scene and what happens right after it? When you have the answer to that, your writing improves tenfold. Does each character have a backstory? They should, they need to. Actors will create one, even if you don't give them one. But the more that you have a backstory, it's really good if you base it on people that you know, even if you don't, reveal that that's the case. But to give them a backstory so that we know that the thing why they get so upset is because when they were 10, this thing happened or that thing happened or their parents divorced or whatever. A lot of times we don't see any of that. But if you know that, actors will love you for it, for one thing. If you give that, here's your, I can't even imagine a writer giving you the backstory of someone. That just doesn't happen. The only time they know that is if they're coming in, all these people, these actors that are coming in, it's quite a challenge for an actor to come into like the Star Wars series when, it's been around for so long. And Adam Driver was like, yeah, you don't want to mess that up. Like, I mean, it's a lot of, could be hard. Luckily they got Adam Driver. I'm a fan. So cut out each character and read the script. Is the missing character relevant? Can they be combined? So if you were to eliminate one of your characters and then read the script and you don't notice that they're gone, then leave them out. So are there two characters that you can combine into one? That's going to help your budget if you're trying to do a low budget thing. But more importantly, if you can combine characters, then they're not drawn very well to begin with. So definitely something to check it out. What is the history between each character? That kind of goes back to the backstory. This was so great. I was doing a play, I was doing Three Sisters, super heavy, Chekhov. And there's a scene where one of the sisters is going on and on about how she was going to do all this stuff this year, and this was going to be her year, and she's going to do all these things. And we were doing the scene, and while she's doing that, we're all listening. The girl that played my other sister, she laughed in it, and it was like there was nothing funny about what she was doing, and she would laugh at that spot every time. And then we did an exercise, and the director was going around and he would say subtext, and you had to say what your character was thinking. And so the girl's doing her little monologue and she laughs, and the director says subtext, and she goes, "You said that last year." And it just killed me because it had nothing to do with anything. That's a great actor right there. It was such a learning moment too, of like, wow, you can feel this had nothing. She was in her own little world over there, but that's what we do as people, right? We are in our own little world. So she's creating this backstory. This play had started before last year. After last year. So we didn't know that, but she's bringing last year into the play with her. So good, right? And it's Chekhov, right? So yes, we are live. Hi, Mickey. I know it's hard to tell sometimes. Is it clear why they have to face their conflict? And this is something that, this is one of my pet peeves actually, is that when it's like, why aren't they just walking home? I mean, we were watching, and I'm going to get nailed for this, but my son and I were binge watching Harry Potter because we hadn't seen him. And so we were cracking up because every Harry Potter, they go through all this horrible stuff with monsters and people dying and and then they go home for summer break. And then the parents are like, okay, see you next year. I'd be like, yeah, you're not going back. So it was like, wow, why are they doing this? And it can be a hard thing sometimes when it's like, and that's why it's funny if one character goes, I'm out. Because they do need to have a compelling reason as to why they're going to face this certain thing. Because sometimes it's just like, if you're sitting there going, just quit the dang job, you need to make sure that the stakes make sense. Otherwise, it's like, just break up. There needs to be a reason why they're sticking it out. Otherwise, it's just not as good. It's not a good conflict. Is there a clear protagonist and is there a clear villain? You'd be surprised how sometimes there's not. And villains don't necessarily have to be these deep characters. We talked a little bit about this on Wednesday or Monday, one of these days. Oh no, it was with the subtext exercise. So villains can be one-dimensional. It's fine. They can be the twisty, evil mustache guy. That's okay. That can actually work if you make it that. So if you stick to it. But if you are going to have a villain, we need to know who the villain is. And there are, like Breaking Bad's a good example where they're following an arc of a character that they wanted to see what would happen. How did Scarface become Scarface? They wanted to see, what if a regular guy becomes Scarface? What would be the process? And that's what they explored. And that's why it worked so well, I think, is because they had an arc that was pretty amazing. Does the relationship between the hero and the villain ring true? Well, that's another one. That's right along the lines of making sure that the stakes make sense, that the conflict makes sense, that there's a reason for it. Because otherwise it's just like, just be done with it. That you don't want that kind of indifference. You want people to be rooting one way or the other. And then, do you like your characters? Are they engaging to you? Even if you hate them, are they, so I should say, do you have a reaction to your own characters? You should like your characters. Doug and I are writing a screenplay and we just killed one of our characters off. And we're like, oh, we like him, but he needs to go. It's so cathartic, right? So there you have it. So that's our handout for today. I know it's kind of like, it seems like it's just a little, but this is a lot. So this is a really, if I don't say so myself, it's a really good tool. We really wanted to just kind of combine the things that we see. And there's more, there's definitely more, but this will get you started. And what will happen is, as you go down one of these paths, then it will like relate you to another path that you're like, oh, I see how this fits together. I wasn't seeing that before. So we really do think that you walk away from it first, for sure. Take that break, and then get some feedback, some general feedback. Do some exercises yourself first. Read through it. Do some of these ask these questions. Do all of this work. Then do yourself a favor of doing a live read. Then you might get a professional coverage at that point, or if I would recommend professional right out the gate, but I would do that, and then I would do all this work, and then I would do it again. It'd be interesting to see the difference, right? And then you're more ready to get it out there. This is the reason why I became a story consultant, is I could see that writers were submitting their screenplays without doing, this is the work, guys, without doing this kind of work. It's so obvious when you're reading it, because you see the same stuff over and over and over again, until you don't. And then when you don't, it's like, this person clearly did the work. So, and you can tell like right away when you're reading a lot of screenplays. So it is powerful to kill people off. So I hope this makes sense. I hope it's a good tool that will help you out. And tomorrow, let's talk productivity. Bah, bah, bah. So, and then Saturday, we're going to do a quick thing on the power of coaching. We're going to talk about coaching a bit. That's what we do as readers, as consultants, as we coach our writers. So I share a little bit about what that's like. And then Sunday, we're going to do a watch party, and we're going to put all these together so we can watch them again. And then we have a few more things planned next week. So this is a shot in the arm, right? Boom, right in your arm. So this is a shot in your arm so that you can get things done rather than languish in the Facebook group, rather than just keep hanging out and reading and books and that kind of thing. It's all good. You should do all that. But at some point, you got to take all this stuff and you got to get it on the road, let the rubber meet the road, and take off. All right, you guys? Ding! Where's my sound effects? Ding! All right, you guys, tomorrow, productivity. Be there. We're going to be productive. Okay, I'm going to stop yelling. All right, we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you, guys. You're so great. I'm having so much fun. This has been a super cool thing, and we're really enjoying it. You screen readers, we'll see you in a few. All right, talk to you soon. Bye. Yay.